Yo, 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 guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Game Six Clay podcast. It's your boy Gautam, my boys Matt and Chuck. Gentlemen, welcome back. Another day, another Game Six Clay episode, and another day closer to the new basketball season kicking off. But before we get into everything, how we doing, boys? How we doing? How we feeling? Season's right around the corner. We're a weekend away.
Whew. Long week, man. A lot of work, a lot of tape to get through. I went from for some of the work I do on the side, I went from watching dubs to watching Lithuanian League basketball. Let me tell you, the quality falls off a lot. And it's a bit of a tough watch. But we're here, man. We're living. It's it's sunny out. Dubs are playing Wemby tonight. We got the season opener Tuesday. Things are feeling good. How you doing, Matt?
Dude, a lot of the same, man. It's beautiful out in Phoenix right now. Life's good. Life feels nice, man. Hoops coming back has just been like a nice way to. You can only watch so many shows, so many movies. You know what I mean? When dubs come back on, hey, it's great. There's nothing. I have no complaints right now. Talk to me in a week, and I will have 700% more than the one or two I have in my life now. So for right now, all good. Preseason, no stress. We'll talk Kings in a second, but Steph really just putting blood in my veins. So thank you, Stefan. Otherwise, no, good life, man. Gotham.
Night. Same here, man. Weather's good. It's best time of the year. You got football in full swing. You got basketball's fully back. Baseball playoffs. Life is good, man. We're gonna be having games on every day. And the game that we had last week, or last not last week, a couple days ago, Warriors Kings. Final preseason game against the Pacific Division for the Warriors this year. Obviously going 2-0 against the Lakers, 2-0 against the Kings, but what a game, man! That was Steve Kerr called it the dress rehearsal, kind of going into it, and it really looked like that. Obviously, no Draymond, no Kevon Looney, who's out with a sickness, I think, but Steph played 31 minutes, Clay, Wiggins, everybody was playing. A little less than what you normally expect them to play. Kind of get the first taste of some of what some of these lineups and rotations might look like. And in true Warriors fashion, man, Steph Curry put the Kings to bed that night. Crisp little step back jump three to win it after an insane just sequence of missing free throws and everything with the comeback. But yeah, man, give me your guys' thoughts. Just going into that game, the dress rehearsal, and really just after leaving that game, how excited or confident or stressed are you about the upcoming season? And yeah, Chuckster, kick it off, man.
Yeah, I was a big fan of what we saw last night. Obviously, like electric game. It felt like regular season. It had the vibes. Man, that was just so much fun to watch. But I I'm starting to get a little too confident for my own liking. Um, I see Matt sitting there. He's feeling it, but like, I mean, Steph went nuclear, 8 of 12 from three. The guy was just absolutely flame throwing out there. They threw in Trace Jackson Davis to the starting lineup. He puts up a tidy little double double. He was really just eating out of the dunker spot, doing some good short roll stuff as usual. So we love to see that. Jonathan Kuminga had arguably his least impressive game of the preseason, and he still put up 18 points, 6 boards, good shooting numbers. So they just got so much clicking for this team, and we saw our first taste of CP3 off the bench too, which I thought was especially interesting considering that they just decided to give Looney some rest in addition to Draymond being out. So I think this is a real sign that they're still not deciding who's going to be that starting group. Um, and he played great. Like I think there were some moments where he looked a little too hesitant to score, but he still took his opportunities in the mid range, hit all of his threes, and just looked crisp out there. He was taking care of the ball. We expect that from him, but handling a lot of the playmaking opportunities, not turning it over, and really, really the only point of concern I had from last night was watching them figure out Steph and Chris defensively because we've seen it with Steph. He's capable of handling what's in front of him, especially when those are guard-sized guys. He can do pretty well on like the shooting guards of the league, while other guys take tougher assignments. But when you have Chris in, now he doesn't really have a choice but to play on these bigger guys, and so he's seen some minutes where he's having to defend like Keegan Murray, which is pretty tough. He was having to defend Kevin Herter, who's much taller than him, has a lot of ways to shoot over him, and that got a little tricky because even to Steph, like Steph's always been the kind of defender where he's not going to walk up and just shut you down and close you off, but he's going to do the right things and he's going to make it tough on you. And there's really not much you can do to make it tough on Keegan Murray because he's like 6'8", 6'9", and shoots the lights out. So Steph can do everything right. And he's just like, all right, dude, shot's going up. Like, congrats on being in the right spot, but I'm still getting this off. So that was kind of the main point of concern, I guess, from last night. What'd you see out there, Matt?
Yeah, I want to pick up where you left off just because I thought last night was as good of an example as to why Chris Paul should be their sixth man, backup point guard more than anything else. Those defensive issues are going to be huge all year long, right? If those two guys play a lot of minutes together, and again, I think at the end of a game, that's kind of the trade-off, right? You're trading offense for defense in a lot of ways. The last 4 or 5 minutes, I think that's kind of okay, but to ask those guys to guard the other team's guards for more than 5-6 minutes a game to me just sounds like, I'm not going to say death sentence because those two guys are two of the best basketball players of all time, but it's a lot to ask and you're going to bleed up a lot of points. So I thought that was a great point, Chuck. Also just want to point out that I think our guy Wiggins had his best game of the preseason last night. He looked as engaged as he has thus far. Guy was cooking. It's not like believable Wiggins to me. He's doing the thing where he's hitting all the mid-range shots for the most part, sunk some threes, but he did go to the basket hard a few times, which again, that's the best version of Wiggins. I think the guy who maybe isn't going every time, but is willing to go. And yesterday he looked more willing. Fingers crossed, who knows? But again, I think even in the group chat, we kind of talked about a little bit of concern for Wiggins and Clay's maybe effort levels or like just levels of lethargy so far. So I thought it was good to see Wiggins alive and well. I don't want to miss this one because it stood out to me. It stands out to me every single time we watch this guy play. Kuminga on guards is just like he's their guy for that. I think as far as high usage defenders goes, he is. I love Wiggins. We've watched Wiggins guard Luka and Tatum in the same postseason and do as well as you can ask him those guys. The guy literally outplayed him in the series. Granted, they're obviously asked to do different things. I get it. Don't freak out, listeners. But JK on Fox he had Fox in prison, man. I didn't see the numbers, but I didn't see Fox scoring him. That's not to say Wiggins is getting worked, but JK being able to do that might make some of those Chris Paul, Steph lineups a little more playable, depending on who's out there for the other team, obviously. But having a guy who you're just like, hey, we're putting you on the better of the two guards and Wiggins is guarding the better of the 3 and the 4. That's a luxury that not a lot of teams have at that level. I don't think we can say enough about just how good JK has looked individually on defense in the postseason or in the preseason in general. I'm just excited about it. And Chuck, you kind of hit it on the head to start. I'm feeling too confident. It's really going to fuck me up, guys. I'm not really feeling too good about it. I'm not liking what I'm seeing because I like it too much. You know what I mean? It's too good. I'm not. There are issues. Yeah, no, go Gautam. Cut me off, man.
No, I was just saying, welcome to my world, dude. That's the life of the ultimate optimist right now, man. I'm feeling like, yo, you gotta hop on the train. I've been saying it's championship season since we lost. It's
different lives, man. You're gonna be optimistic till the end of whatever the season's done. The buzzer sounds. You're feeling good. I'm in hell next Tuesday. Okay, next Tuesday at halftime, I'm gonna be miserable. Okay, so there's that. But no, I really just think this team is set. They're 12 guys deep. Like they're 11 or 12 guys deep right now with just actual NBA players. I never once felt like, oh shit, why is he in? Save, except for Corey Joseph. No offense to our guy, Corey Joseph. They rolled out I don't remember if this was last night or a couple nights ago. They rolled out Kuminga, Clay, Corey Joseph, Moody, and I forget who the big was, but it was just like
I think it was the last game, yeah.
It was like Steve
I think it was
daring
Sarge.
someone. Yeah, it might have been Sarge. Steve was just like, I dare you to try to set anybody out there. And none of these guys could do it. They stagnated. I really hope going into the season, and again, I like Corey Joseph as a third guard. I really hope we don't see more than a minute or two from him a game, and I really hope we don't see any minutes at all when Steph or CP are not on the floor next season, because there's no reason not to. Obviously, if one of those two guys are out, which is going to happen enough, I get it. But even then, I'm sorry. Let's go with Nico Mannion. The ride shoe
The
to
Centaur.
yeah, let's go with pardon me. Let's go with the ride shoe to Nico Mannion's Pikachu, man. You know what I mean? So get him in there. Get Pods in there. He knows how to set our dudes up. So no, I'm feeling good, guys. Again, too good. Can't handle it. The vibes are absolutely back. We can't skip over the fact that Steph just domed De'Aaron Fox to close that game.
So fun. So fun.
Just what magical moments in the preseason don't happen unless you're a fan of Steph Curry. I'm sorry. It's just the way it goes. It's crazy stuff.
It was awesome, man.
Couple things I want to throw in before I get to you, Gotham. One, shout out to our guy Joe Varaj for pointing out at the end of that game, because of the unit that the Warriors had out there close, which I believe was PP3, Kuminga, Clay, and I want to say TJD closing that possession. Might have been Saric, but either way, like the point he made was they weren't comfortable doubling off any of those guys. And that's all teams want to preach. And I get it's preseason. Maybe they're like, you know what, let's just throw them an ISO, see what happens. But they always preach like, don't let the star beat you. And you're going to double Steph off the ball to make anyone else beat you. And they didn't do that. And then bang, he hits a 30-foot step back. And the other point that I want to make too is, we kind of saw this with, I think last season, where it kind of felt like, this guy's out, so we're screwed, or this guy's not playing well, it's over. Like the depth was just so wire thin, where you felt like, if Draymond doesn't play, what are we gonna do? Like if Clay's out, what's gonna happen? And what we saw last night, especially, obviously no Draymond, no Looney. They got a lot of good play out of the bigs. Sarge had a big night. He's looking really good for this system. But Clay was just not there offensively. Like he did not have his game going. And I think a big theme we saw last year was, okay, Steph off nights are pretty rare, but Clay off nights are going to happen. Like a guy who shoots that much, especially post injury, still clearly like figuring some things out in terms of what are his comfort looks to get to. And he wasn't there last night offensively. And they made up for it in the aggregate because Kuminga had a huge scoring game. Wiggins was making his shots. Saric was scoring. Chris was scoring. So I think what we're seeing is like there aren't going to be as many panic button games because this guy isn't available or this guy isn't making his shots tonight. And I think the burden is going to be so much lesser on everyone to be available, to be playing well. And that's going to be a huge factor for this year. Gotham, what you got, my man? Sorry for the cut in.
No, that was perfect. And I mean, that kind of just summed up everything that I was thinking of. And it really kind of boils down to the roster construction that we talked about, like in the offseason and all of last year. Like that last year was such a drop off in the depth, and even the pre-KD Warriors, man, like that team was very well built. Like it was always 8-9 guys deep. You had solid vets coming off the bench, and the Livingstons, the Barbosas, the Mo Spates, guys, JaVale McGee's, like guys who you had confident that that second unit was at the very least going to be able to hold a lead or not like give up anything. Like last season with the second unit, we were seeing, minus 25, minus 20, like so many disparities from a scoring standpoint and defensively that all it really, like when we said the Warriors lost on the margins last year, that's like, this is what it meant when they lost on the margins, like having a guy like Sarge, having a guy like CP. And I think the second unit, and we've always said that, we think that CP should come off the bench, and it just looks so much more smooth with kind of a more traditional starting lineup, and then subbing in. I think Clay subbed out within the first like 5 minutes or something, and came back in to close the first quarter with Steph out. So when you're always gonna have a guy, two of those 3-star guards out there, and Steph, Clay, and CP. I think like you guys said, Wiggins looked fantastic. Kind of just a guy he's just a reliable like 18 point guy, like 18 to 20 points a night, like just clockwork. I felt like Wiggins was kind of just doing his thing under the radar and making the right plays. Offensively, he was aggressive, like you said, Matt, just kind of attacking the basket a few times. I remember seeing. And Jonathan Kuminga, man, like I'm glad you guys touched on it. And dude, he's taking the leap. JK looks phenomenal. I think that if he's your seventh man with Chris Paul being the sixth man, like you're a deep team right there, just seven deep, and you know in the playoffs, and we'll obviously dissect this roster as the season goes on. But you know in the playoffs, it's always 7 to 8, maybe 9 guys if you're really like that, that you're relying on. And JK is proven just in the preseason so far just how far he's come in the offseason. He's going to be a guy that's going to be relied on in moments when Draymond's out, when Looney's out. Just the versatility he brings defensively. The jumper looks legit offensively. I think he had one. I think it was Corey Joseph. Funnily enough, he passed it to Kuminga on with the shot clock expiring and just kind of nailed this midi with the time going down. And it's just those small things, man. He's looking fantastic. Exactly what you'd want to see. I thought Sarge was fantastic too. I think he's like the prototypical Warriors big. Just a guy who's smart, high IQ, can shoot, big dude. He can rebound. He was eating up rebounds. Kind of clogging up some of those passing lanes. And the Warriors defensively also felt a lot more jittery than they did last season, or like just clogging up those passing lanes, getting steals and getting out in transition. So I think his team is just built better in general than we've seen over the last year. And it reminds, I think 22, like I think it's a better roster than the 2022 championship one. And, we had guys that showed up in Otto Porter, Bielitsa, JTA, and I think when you have guys like Sarge, Kuminga taking the lead, GP2 back and healthy, so like I think the floor for this roster is way higher than what we had coming into 2022, and obviously we knew how that season ended. So I'm feeling really good. I'm not scared about my confidence level. It's been high about this team since the offseason in the summer, after we traded for Chris Paul, signed Sarge. I'm ready to see it in action, man. Let's get this preseason game out of the way. The dress rehearsal looked great. And Warriors basketball, baby, back Tuesday night. KD's return. Let's go get number 5.
So I also want to point out, I just want to say this before we move on to anything else. Not pointing anything out. I hate Sabonis. I can't stand this guy. He honestly comes off as the nicest person in the world when he gives interviews and whatnot. But since the Draymond, I hesitate to call it stomp. I'm going to call it the step. I just see his face making that face he made when he was put upon by Draymond's foot. Okay.
Fuck that guy.
So when this guy, he put up 10 and 11 last night or so. I just want to point out the Warriors had neither of their Sabonis stopping bigs yesterday, and our guy couldn't get it going. His best work was throwing elbows on the rookie Trace Jackson Davis, who Chuck you hit on, but our guy just looks ready to go. Charles Cummings here is ready to really let loose on some article this year on TJD. I'm sure. I can't wait to read it. But again, Sabonis just trying to get his work done on the young guy the whole time. Finished with a double-double. Good for you, Sabonis. We had your kryptonite on the bench, not feeling well, and you still couldn't get it done. Good luck. Okay. Well, boys.
Real quick before we pivot, I also just want I feel like none of us, we just kind of skipped over the one guy that we should be just fiending over, who's Steph Curry. Steph Curry at the head of this team too. Like we're talking about this roster construction. This dude looks as good as he's ever been. And I feel like we've said it multiple times. I don't think I've ever seen him more dialed in for a season than this upcoming one, and that should be scary for the rest of the league, man. Like I'm not saying we'll do bold takes later, but Steph's on a mission, and I haven't heard this many sound bites of him saying, we're going all in to win a championship ever. I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but this feels like the most locked in we've heard Steph, vocally at least, going into a season. So with him at the head of the snake, man, like you said, kind of just touched over that game winner, but dude Stones just casually dropped 30.
13 points in 2 minutes, man.
Dude's a killer, and like he doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. So with Steph leading the way, man, I'm so confident in this team.
Love it, dude. I love it. And again, 13 points, 2 minutes, 3 threes, Dirk turnaround, all of it, man. It was just, again, we're lucky. Hold on to it. He looks like he's still going to be one of the best 5-6 players in the league this year. If not, I say 2-3. That's just me. Who cares? Listen, my point is there's no one better. Definitively. There's one guy. He's Serbian and he's chunky, and I'm a fan. But that's it. That's it, though. Okay. No, guys, listen, I myself have a good prediction. This season is bound to have all kinds of turbulence that we're not expecting, for better and for worse, for sure. Just one big bold prediction for this season. It can be anything we're thinking about. But what do we Chuck bombs away, man?
My bold prediction is the Warriors are going to have two of the top three six man of the year vote getters this year. And I think you know who I'm talking about. Now, Chris Paul, he's probably going to be he's probably going to be closing games. Uh, yeah. um, yeah, I think he's going to end up closing a lot of these games, and we'll talk about these closing lineups too a little bit later. But he's probably, it looks more than likely he comes off the bench to start. He's going to be putting up numbers. I think, something in the neighborhood of 15, 16, and 7, and like really good peripherals is not out of the picture. If he really goes off, he could still be getting big numbers. And offensive numbers really tend to shine when it comes to the six-man conversations. But Jonathan Kuminga looks like he's going to be dropping a lot of points off the bench. And it would not surprise me if he has a massive scoring breakout this season. I've written my article before on his potential for a shooting breakout. We know that he just sort of seems to develop his handle exponentially. He went from being the rookie who's like dribbling it off his knee and his feet all the time and just, getting stripped on the gather, to really holding on to that thing well. He's finishing with the left. And we know he's just nails defensively. And, I think that's kind of the shame when it comes to the six-man award, which is kind of why it's my least favorite award, because it's just highest bench scorer. Like, here you go.
It's the worst award because Andre Iguodala never won it.
Yeah, it's just silly. It never goes to the best bench guy. It goes to the highest scoring one. And sometimes those are the same. But I think it helps if Kuminga has this big scoring breakout that I think we all feel is coming. And he gets into that, 15, 16 point per game range. He's getting rebounds. He's gathering steals, assists, blocks. And then even once he has this reputation that he's just nails defensively on guards and wings, then I think you're talking about a guy who's a real six-man candidate. And granted, people get on those weird discussions. Another reason why it's a really stupid award because of the name. People are like, oh, if you can't have two six-man of the year guys on the same team. Like, congrats on reading words incredibly literally. Like, that's very sick. The award is for the best bench guy. So, deal with it like it is.
I love that prediction. I think it's perfect because I think just based on what we saw yesterday, Kirk kept calling it a dress rehearsal, right? They're all calling it a dress rehearsal. They rolled out it wasn't like a second unit with the stars in place, except for Clay, right? They had one starter, four bench guys. Kuminga and Chris Paul are going to play a lot of minutes off the bench. I will be very surprised and I will be disappointed and discouraged if Steph, Clay, and Draymond play more than honestly 31, 32 minutes a game. It shouldn't be any higher than that, in my opinion. And with that being said, there are going to be a lot of minutes to be had for CP off the bench, for Steph and for Clay, for JK, for Wiggins, and for Draymond. So there's going to be a lot of time for those guys to put up numbers. And I think Chris Paul bucks that trend, Chuck. I think he is a kind of a good enough combination of skills to where he might get recognized for what he's doing for JK more than vice versa. I think if Kuminga has a great season, I see Chris Paul getting a lot of credit for it, whether that's totally accurate. But if Chris Paul is 16-7 off the bench and the Warriors are winning games, it's a lock, I think. Gautam, bold.
Bold take, man. I don't even know if it's that bold, man. We're winning a championship. That's my take. I want to also say that Steph's in the MVP conversation, but the amount of games he might play, just the minutes too. So that would be my other bold take, I guess, that Steph wins his third MVP. But I'll refrain from signing my name at the bottom of that. But it's the one that was on the top of my head. But no, we're in a fifth championship. I don't think that there's obviously this window is very, very, it's the final iteration of this dynasty, for take that as you will. And this is the year. It's the year to do it. I think everybody in that locker room, in that clubhouse, knows that it's the year to do it. Like I mentioned earlier, like Steph, Draymond, Clay, CP, Steve Kerr, everybody seems locked in on one singular mission of getting back to the mountaintop. And with the way this roster looks, with just through the first preseason games, and we'll see obviously as the season unfolds, but I don't see why they're not going to be right there in the conversation for a top 3 seed. They look like they're going to be up there. And it's the time to do it, man. Get number 5, and I don't see why this team can't do it. I think this roster is better than the one that won a championship a year and a half ago. So run it back, get back to the top. That's my bold take.
Yeah, I love it. I think this team is stacked. And if they stay healthy, I think they're as good as anybody. Healthier Clay, hopefully, all that stuff. So I love it, Gotham. My prediction, I think one of Wiggins, Moody, or Kuminga is not on this team after the trade deadline. And here's kind of where I'm at with that. Moody especially, I'm sure we noted this, but he played like 3 minutes the other night. And again, I can't say this enough. They keep calling this a dress rehearsals, like these last 2 games, right? GP2 is ahead of Moody on the depth chart. Kuminga is ahead of Moody on the depth chart. They like Clay with that bench unit. It's tough because his values get really hard to figure out. But I think if teams around the league still think he's good, and again, he showed in the playoffs to the point where he's good. This kid can play, but he's still not getting minutes. And the Warriors think they can make a move at the deadline. It's hard for me to not imagine him being the guy that gets kind of targeted out, especially with Dunleavy showing that he's more willing to make moves than Bob ever was. So yeah, I see Moody getting squeezed from the lineup a lot. Granted, this team is going to sit a lot of their guys, and maybe that's where he finds his opportunities here and there. But he just feels like the one kind of odd man out in that case. As for Wiggins and Kuminga, listen, if Kuminga shows out the way he has been, this version of Kuminga we're seeing, in my opinion, is a more valuable player than Wiggins is. If we get this version, which again, that's a big if. But if we're getting the guy, listen, here's the deal between the difference between Wiggins and Kuminga in my mind is similar level athletes, right? Maybe some similar weaknesses offensively. Kuminga wants to kill you. Like he wants to be great. Like that guy wants to be a great NBA player. And I think that'll keep driving him to get better and better. Whereas I don't know if we're going to see Wiggins ever be better than he was that title year. And that doesn't mean he's not borderline all-star, borderline all-defensive level player. But if Kuminga is replacing those things with the intensity he has, if Kuminga turns into higher volume, 37, 38, 39% shooter from 3, wants to attack the rim, wants to get to the free throw line despite his poor free throw shooting, starts rebounding the ball, that player that Kuminga could be, I think, is a more valuable player than Wiggins is at this point. To be clear, that's if Kuminga does the things we've been seeing him do and keeps progressing, and he's consistent. That's kind of the difference too, right? Wiggins is consistently who Wiggins is. Like you said, 16 to 19 to 20 points a game, really good defense. But TBD, I think Kuminga is going to make it a tough decision at some point. Maybe not this trade deadline, but eventually. And conversely, listen, if Kuminga shows out, that's a trade chip potentially. That's a guy who the Warriors look at if they want to go all in for someone at some point. He's the guy who, if he's balling out, might get moved. If he's putting up starter numbers, but they're not willing to move him into that lineup, they're not willing to really accommodate what he brings to the game. I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing all 3 of those wings being on the team, given all the variables that could play into stuff going into the season.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I had never even really thought about it like that in terms of like selling high or trading Wiggins, but at least I don't know about this year though, just because like they just signed Wiggins for a long-term deal. Kuminga still got, I think, another year on that contract or the rookie deal. So I see your point. I don't know if it's this year's the year, but that's a very, very fair conversation for, I would assume, maybe next offseason. But
that might be more reasonable, honestly, but
I didn't think about that though. That's a very good point.
I think that's Matt, I like the point you made too, is, if they get to the point, like, we'll see with Dunleavy, because Bob knows that, like, deadline is when teams face hard realities. We don't have it this year. So it's certainly possible that they could go hunting for a guy who is expiring. I'm not, going to give it enough energy to pull up all the impending free agents right now, but there could be options out there. There's the Pascal Siakams of the world, like guys who've just kind of run out their string in whatever city they're in, and they could use a little deadline stretch guy. But the offseason I think really was where like Bob always consistently knew that everyone's open for business right around then. And the reverse aspect of getting to the deadline is, especially with the play-in, so many teams are going to convince themselves like, yeah, we're still in it. And if like let's say hypothetically you get through the season and Moody is looking serviceable, but he's not quite breaking out. I'm still convinced that the defensive breakout is going to come, but if the offensive numbers aren't there, then he's no like star bet at this point. But if Kuminga is looking like a star and they're looking to move around some cap, they're looking to do all these other things. They're going to have to make some tough calls with Chris Paul being an impending free agent. With their cap situation, it's basically sign him or lose it because they just can't afford to go that extra distance on that money. And I think it'll be an interesting conversation because then they can go out and they can say, hey, we have draft picks, which I'm sure you want. Every team's going to be convincing themselves, oh, if we get like a 2028, 2029, 2030 around that range, then fingers crossed the core is retired and that turns into a good pick. But we can also give you a elite prospect right now. Like, I don't think there's any question that Jonathan Kuminga has put himself into that blue chip tier with the defense. If he scores the way we think he's going to score this upcoming season, then he can be the headliner for sure. And I don't think there are many playoff teams around that have that kind of guy that they can deal. So I think he would be huge. And they'll kind of get into this point where it's all right. Well, if we keep him, we win because we still have him. But if we want to trade him, we also win because we just got a massive star, and we added that star to Steph, Clay, Draymond, probably CP3 re-signing if things go well. So that's where I think it
3
gets
years,
kind of
12 million.
Yeah.
Love that. Down for that.
12 million total.
Yeah.
Like NFL defensive tackle money.
No, those are great points, Chuck. I love what you're saying, man. I think, yeah, I'm none of me doubts Moody's ability or potential. It is just a matter of when and where are those minutes coming.
Mm-hmm.
So with that all being said, we talked a lot about individual players and who fits where. I think what we all really appreciate right now with this team is the flexibility lineup wise to go. They can go Steph carries an all defensive lineup. That lineup can actually have more two-way guys than it used to have. Given JK, given GP, given Moody, Draymond, whoever CP, even if you want to step up over Poole. They can go heavy on the offense like they did against the Kings to close a lot of the time with Sarge at the 5. Clay, CP, Steph, Wiggins, whatever it might be. Who's the 5-man group that you both see closing at least? I'm not going to say the majority of the games, but more than others. I think this team really has flexibility, and I'm really thinking Steve Kerr might be more willing to go with different groups every night, depending on what he needs. But what group do you see being like the most prolific of their 5-man groups to close games?
I like that. I felt like off the top of my head, I'd want to see like a Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond closing lineup. I think Kuminga's kind of played himself into like this guy just has to be on the floor. And I feel like it'd be a toss up between Clay and CP. But I feel like you kind of just need Wiggins out there. Maybe Wiggins kind of just in that mix of one of the, and like you said, like on a nightly basis that might change. But I think Kuminga has to be in consideration to be that guy with Draymond out there, and with Steph. So Clay, Wiggins, and CP kind of all interchangeable for 2 of those spots. But kind of depending on the game goes, but I'd want to see Kuminga out there closing more often than not, especially just with the way his versatility. I think that, especially with Draymond kind of playing that 5 down the stretch, we know he can handle it from a defensive standpoint. But having a guy like Wiggins, having a guy like Kuminga out there, just defensively makes that lineup a lot more just potent. But with Steph offensively, and then Kuminga as kind of your your dunker spot, but can also shoot the three. It's similar with Wiggins, and Clay shooting. CP's kind of creating. So there's a lot of fun combinations that kind of 6-man unit can do and can see with the closing lineup. So that'd probably be my 5 off the top of my head, with CP kind of being the odd man out. But again, it's kind of just game by game and who's kind of got the hot hand. But yeah, I think Kuminga's got to be in there though.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think so. There's 3 realistic lineups for me. One is rolling back out there with the starting unit: Steph, Clay, Wiggs, Draymond, Looney. If you're facing a team that's a little bigger, like maybe they're running more of the Twin Towers type stuff. Too soon, sorry. But uh, I I think there's some teams out there where it's, if you're playing like the Phillies of the world, or, especially Denver, like, and, Aaron Gordon's not quite a big, but you really do like having 2 bigs so you can send extra help over on a guy like Jokic, on a guy like Embiid. Um, I do also love the idea of that lineup that you threw out there for all the same reasons, like slide Kuminga at the 4, move Draymond to the 5, because they just have amazing synergy there. And I think, there's going to be some nights, I think, where it makes sense to close with Chris Paul. But the problem to me is, going back to the defense, like, how many teams do you play where you can kind of afford to, hide Steph on like whoever the 3 is? If you take a team like Memphis, like let's say when Ja gets back, you're probably want Wiggins on him. And that means you're probably going to want Steph taking some minutes on, maybe Desmond Bain, maybe Chris Paul takes him. So then who's the guard, who's the odd man out there? Like, who's going to be able to guard like a bigger wing? If it's even, Memphis is interesting because they really don't have any threes, but if Luke Kennard is the guy, like, who's going to have to chase him around? You look at other teams like Phoenix is a tough one, for example. Like, they're going to kind of have to figure things out at the 3, but if they go big and you have some lineups with, KD playing more of a 3, or how do you figure that out? Like, are you planting one of them on that 5th starter who's not really getting as many shots? Who's taking Beal? Who's taking Booker? Like, that becomes a lot tougher to figure out. So I think it's going to be heavily matchup dependent, but I go back to those 3 lineups, like the starters, sub in Kuminga for Looney, and then sub in CP3 for Looney. Go a little smaller with those last 2. I think those are going to be your 3 primary closing lineups we see.
Yeah, I'm not going to deviate too much from that. Gotham, I also want to see coming out a lot of these. I think what's going to be the biggest barrier for him to breaking into that is just, hey, if we're 30 games in and he's shooting 39% from 3, that's going to be the biggest thing, because that gives you that flexibility. You can play him again. He already plays well next to Draymond, but you can play him really comfortably next to Draymond. Even if you want to go with Looney instead of Draymond at some point for whatever reason, you can do that with JK at that point. Right now, I don't think you can with Looney. But I just think, again, I just agree with you guys for the most part. You can't go wrong with that 5-man group from last year, a starting group. It's a tried and true formula, right? We know it works. Also want to point out, for anybody who wants, and I'm not like a Clay, just like total apologist. I think the guy's great, and I think he'll figure it out offensively. But for anybody who wants, Kuminga for Clay in there, Chris Paul for Clay in there, and closing with Looney and Draymond, I just want to give everybody a heads up. Looney and Draymond do not work if Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are not on the floor offensively. That team is not going to score. So figure something else out, because those 2 got no other team in the league can have that front court without the backcourt the Warriors have. It's not going to happen. So please keep that in mind. But that does not mean, I want to be clear, I want to talk about this a little bit. I think they might get squeezed from that closing lineup sometime this year. I think if we get the same Clay we got in spurts last year, and don't shit your shorts anybody. Like, I know Clay was, again, led the league in threes, kept the Warriors afloat for 2 months with some of the best play he's had in his career. He also had a lot of games where he shot the Warriors out of games. He also looks right now to be frank, and a little bit disappointed, a little more tired than I hoped he would look at this point. His legs look a little bit slow defensively. And that might just be rust, right? It's just at the preseason, so who cares? You let the guy figure it out, and Clay always figures it out. He probably will. But I think Steve Kerr is going to be willing to bench anybody to close these games outside of Steph and probably Wiggins, to be honest, which is crazy. But I think Clay is as susceptible to that as Draymond is for various reasons, as Looney will be. And these guys got to all step up. And Chris Paul in that same boat, right? These guys aren't all going to close games. There are too many good guys in this team. But just again, they have 7 guys who probably start. If 6, if you don't want to get too generous to Kuminga. And the same thing applies for closing. But I think all these guys, if they put their egos to the side, it could be smooth sailing, and Steve Kerr is going to have a lot of flexibility and a lot of optionality to close games. But yeah, overall, it's I think it is the starting group that closes a lot of games, or Chris Paul in that place of Loon.
100%, man. And as we're kind of wrapping up the preseason, getting ready for the real one to start. I think the Warriors line right now is set at 47.5 wins for the season. Let's do a little over under action, man. How are we feeling? Over or under that 47.5?
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with over, I think. And it's not that crazy. Wiggins missed almost 40 games last year. This team was not that deep last year. Draymond Green punched their 6th man in the face to start the season last season. Listen, I just don't think it's that crazy, man. Clay, again, I know what I just said. I think Clay's going to get this year. I think he'll figure it out. You get a healthier Klay Thompson. You get more Andrew Wiggins, a better Jonathan Kuminga, a better backup point guard, just better. This team's better, man. They're a better basketball team. They won 44 games last year. Their starting small forward missed almost half the season. Their 6th man was wearing goggles that literally just stopped him from seeing to his right and his left, in the ground, even in the basketball. He couldn't see anything. Okay. So yeah, it's kind of an easy over for me if this team is even relatively healthy. And again, Steph misses 20 games, Chris Paul's playing. I trust Chris Paul. God forbid, this team's going to be good. I think they care a little bit about this season, this regular season, more than maybe they have in the past, because they kind of have a lot to prove. This team does not like people writing them off. They don't like it. And it's a lot of that right now. So I'm going to over 47.5. Record wise, shoot, man, I'm going to say 51 wins. Sounds like it's solid 51 and 31. I'm in. Over. Chuck?
Oh man, it's confusing times when Matt's going over and I'm going under. And
Wow.
my only logic for this, and it's not because I'm down on this team. I still think this team has legitimate championship aspirations. One, it feels like we say this every year. The West is a bloodbath. Like it is just so loaded with competitive teams. Like we're gonna see Denver cooking as usual. We're gonna see Phoenix, although I'm not sold on them in the playoffs. They're going to be an elite regular season team. We're going to see Memphis coming back. We're going to see like so many strong, and even when you get like down towards the lower tiers of it, like LA, always a tough one. I mean, Clippers, when they're healthy, they're always going to be dogs. We see the Kings, they're putting up competitive games every time. Dallas is a basketball team, apparently. So I just think that there's going to be a lot of reasons for them to be down on that. And then you look at the core too, like traditionally these are pretty healthy guys, but Steph 35, Clay's 33, Draymond 33, Chris 38, even down to the role guys, like the guys we know are going to be in the rotation. Like Saric is getting close to 30. He's torn his ACL before. Gary Payton over 30. He gets hurt. Like I think that it's going to be one of those cases where we know this is a good team, but they just have to stagger so much rest throughout. And granted, I still think there's a scenario where, they can just like rotate through resting guys and it just doesn't matter because they're so deep and they just keep winning games and they clear 50 pretty easily. But 47.5, like, damn it, Vegas, you've done it again. I think they're going to win exactly 47 games. Like, it's just going to be right on that line.
I love it. I also think that Yeah, man, that's one of the things though. If there's any reason to really bet against that, there are two non-playoff quality teams in the West this year. It's San Antonio and Houston. Everybody else
Portland.
has Portland as
yeah,
well. Yeah,
probably
Portland,
Portland.
100%. Otherwise, though, you're playing a good team every night when you're in your conference. That's a good point, Chuck. I'm still sticking to the over, but I think it's not silly. Gotham.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over as well, obviously. But for Chuck's point that the West was a bloodbath is kind of why I'm gonna bet the over because Matt, like you said, after everything that happened last season, like the West was a bloodbath last year too. Like all these teams are still really, really good. But for everything that went wrong with Wiggins missing time, GP getting traded back towards the end of the season, like getting healthy, all the young guys on the roster not necessarily having the depth that this team has, they still won 44 games. And I think Matt, that point, in a very, very, bloodbathy West last season as well. So the rosters improved. Steph looks good. Steph looks very, very healthy. Clay has an offseason under his belt where he's been working out and playing. Draymond, once he kind of comes back from this injury, it sounds like they're he's going to be hitting the ground running. So and like you said, Matt, it seems like this regular season has a lot more kind of a microscope on it on this team in terms of, like you said, proving everybody wrong. They kind of obviously coming off a championship for last season, so they coming off the championship, they everything that went wrong, so they still won 44 games. So yeah, I'm taking the over. I like 50. I think they're a 50-win team. I think 50 is a fair kind of benchmark, and if that's where the line was, then I'd consider the under. But I think this team clears 50 pretty not easily, but I think they're a very good basketball team. And I just think that the depth is going to help out just with having all these older guys. So they're going to be they're going to have a good season. Yeah, I'll call 50 and 32. Which again, I kind of want to pick like 53 or 54 wins, but we'll temper those till the next time. Love it. Warriors prediction on Raps. But before we get out of here, man, a Warriors legend, has officially called it quits today. Andre Iguodala announced his retirement. The first real big free agent that got traded or signed to the Warriors that I can remember in my lifetime. I remember when we signed him, he was talking to the Kings. It was after that Nugget series. It was like Sacramento, and when he signed with Golden State, it felt like, damn, like he sees something here, and obviously we won 4 championships with Andre. Shipped him out to Miami for a quick two more, or what it was, 1 year in the finals, something like that. 2 years.
Memphis and Miami, yeah.
Memphis and Miami, that's right. So he had a little hiatus while we were kind of regrouping and getting back in the fold, but joined us back for the 4th championship run. But just great memories of Iggy, man. Just being the guy to come off the bench for Harrison Barnes, having a vet like that who really, Steph, Clay, Draymond were obviously the guys, and it was all built around Steph, but it was having those older guys like Iguodala, Livingston, Barbosa, like in that first iteration of the championship run. So a guy like Iggy came in, obviously Finals MVP too, in 2015 for holding LeBron to 30 points. But that series changed when Iggy kind of started, and you can see in that game 6, I think he had like 21, 22 points. Really was the X factor in that series. So wouldn't have gotten 4 chips without Iggy. Maybe would have gotten the 22 one without him. But no, all love. But no, it was he's just been a crucial part of this dynasty, and the jersey's gonna go up the rafters someday. But shout out Andre Iguodala, man, hell of a career. And excited to see what he's got cooking out after basketball, man. Like the dude is been quite vocal about like all the stuff he's got going on off the court. He's got the podcast. I know he's a big investor too, so I'm excited to see what he does off the court. And all the best to you, Iggy. Thanks for the memories, man.
You guys have a favorite Andre moment from the last
hands
8 years?
down. Yeah, hands down. I don't even remember what game it was, but it was when he crossed up that full
At Denver, man.
Denver.
It was behind the back cross.
Yeah, behind the back, and I think he missed the layup or something like that. And
Yep.
it was
Foul.
awesome. got fouled. So that I see that pops up on my Twitter like all the time, just that highlight. And that game winner against the Thunder, I think. Before I think it was his first season.
A little baseline step
Yeah,
back. That
like,
was
and I remember that was one of the I think it was his first season that he signed. And it was just sick. Like, dude, we got Andre Iguodala after playing him in the playoffs the year before. So, and obviously the championships and all that. So that's a given. But a lot of great memories with Iggy. But those two will stick out in my head for a while.
I when I was thinking of favorite Andre moments, I had way too many to pick from. So I'm gonna go ahead and narrow it down to just a couple. First of all, the steal against Damian Lillard, game on the line. Dame's going for the three, just bop, takes it out, game over. Runs all the way to the locker room, and then after the game said, "Yeah, that wasn't a very good play," referring to them trying to get him ISO'd on Andre. His ability to talk shit is just unbelievable. Uh, I don't know when the exact moment was, but I'll never forget him staring at his own hand. I believe when he made a similar play, like game stealing steal or block, whatever it was. Um, I actually got to make it 4 moments because it's another one where I'm forgetting the game specifically. But Andre had like a massive dunk and one, and then his celebration was to like power walk up the court with his arms like swinging at his sides at the most ridiculous ways. Uh, he's just unreal, man. And then one of the most iconic moments, the one that happened after the whistle, Andre throwing that ridiculous behind the back lob. That was just some peak, like AD Warriors. What the hell is going on with this team? Like they are way too good for anybody. And him just throwing a behind the back lob to Dot with his left hand. I'm just gonna miss him so much. Like he has so many core memorable moments from the great run of this team, and we're gonna miss having him around, man. He was the ultimate do everything guy. He brought the vibes up, the defense, the passing. He would score. Like, man, what else can you say? Rafters.
He really is like Steve Kerr's dream for basketball. Like he is the Steve Kerr basketball player. All great choices. I got a few as well. I don't even know how to describe this one. Chuck similar. He was just funny. Like, he was a funny guy, man. Like there'd be bad calls, and the way he would mock refs was like, no one else did it better. He had one where somebody traveled and did a little like row your boat thing afterwards, and it always killed me, man. I don't think I could ever forget this. So the OKC game, regular season 2016, Steph buried that three, the double bang, right? The bang bang 3.
Mm-hmm.
That game went to overtime because Andre Iguodala, who I'm pretty sure shoots like in the 60s as a free throw shooter, got fouled last second. Game on the line, 73-win season, sinks them both, which is just I don't think anybody thought this guy was knocking those down to get to overtime. He knocked them both down. The guy, he's a stud. Stones. Similar moment. Gautam, I had that crossover as well, man. I love that move. It's one of the dirtiest crosses of all time. People don't think about this stuff, man. This guy is like, he's, in my opinion, one of the 3 or 4 best wing defenders ever. Like, it's him, Scotty, Kawhi, and you want to say Michael as well, but like, just incredible. He locked KD the fuck up in games like 4 through 7 of the 2016 conference finals. And the Andre swipe down is like my favorite defensive play in basketball. Like, I've worked so hard to try to be able to do that ever, and I usually end up hitting somebody in the face really hard every time. But like, it is one of my favorite moves. That the entire last 3 or 4 games of that series, it was just nonstop. Him putting the locks on KD, and again, much love to KD, 2 chips, love legend, right? The guy was. There's nobody I've ever seen play basketball with better hands on defense than Andre Iguodala, and every steal just felt like it felt like somebody dared him, and he was so up for the challenge every time. Leader on the bench. Also can't forget him mocking Draymond behind LeBron last year when LeBron was giving Draymond a hug. with the inappropriate gesture. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look up Andre Iguodala, LeBron James, Draymond Green. Check it out for yourself. But no, all of it. He's gonna be missed. I think his presence on the 2022 title team can't be overstated. He was coaching those guys up, coaching Wiggins up. Had some good moments that season too. Babysitting the young guys on the bench. Just gonna miss Andre, man. Shouts to a great career.
Dunking so hard he missed like 2 months of the season.
Yes.
Like one of the funniest things I can remember.
Was that his first game back?
Dude, it was like his first or second game back, and he just goes through the lane, dunks, misses like the next 20 games.
Yeah, so we miss you. That was great run.
I had to point it out too because I had to look it up. The staring at the hands was the same game as Dame because he ran into the tunnel. Yeah, so this was all one consecutive moment. He strips Dame, he runs straight through the tunnel, and then on camera, staring at his hands, he goes, "Hey, these motherfuckers are crazy," talking to his own hands. Like there will never be another Andre Iguodala. Like he was so singularly hilarious in just the way he carried himself. Like just such a weird, funny guy.
also the GOAT Steph defender. Like he would die for Steph 10 times out of 10. And I love that for him. He's the one guy shouting Steph as a top 2, 3, 4 all-time player all the time. He thinks he is like the less creepy version of Jim Park towards Steph. You know what I mean? Like he loves Steph to death, and I love that for him. So guys, I think we nailed a lot of those. We gotta get out of here. It's been a long pod, right? But Warriors play the Suns on Tuesday. Katie's first game back in the Bay. We don't need to reminisce on Katie at all. Dub or an L? What are we getting here?
Big W's, baby.
I'm calling it L. I'm sorry.
He's back. He's back.
He's back. Takes the over on the wins with the opening nights and L. That's fair.
Yeah. Happiness equals reality minus expectations, man. I'm not trying to get hurt this early in the season, so
I respect it. No, but I think it's a dub, man. It's a home opener. Guys are gonna be extra juiced. First game back. I can't predict an L in a game like that. It might be, who knows, but I'm never gonna go on air and say that the Warriors are losing the game, and I'm not starting against KD and the Suns. So Warriors by 50, bro. Fuck it.
No, I think they get the dub there. I think part of it is, like I said, I think Phoenix is going to be an incredibly talented regular season team. I think they're probably going to get picked apart because of the depth at the playoffs. That was a big conversation this offseason is just having a bunch of names is not depth. That's not how that works. So I think they're going to be, especially new coach, so many new players, so much new talent. I think they're going to be in like data collection mode. You're going to see a lot of different lineups. Some are going to work, some aren't. So I think that's why we see, Phoenix is going to be a little lessened while they try to figure these things out. And that's why I'm pretty confident the Warriors win because this team looks like it's been playing with each other for like, obviously some of them have, but it looks like this whole unit has been together for like 10 years out there on the floor. So I just think we see one team that is fully ramped up and one team that is still kind of figuring out what the identity is here in that first game.
Love it. Yeah, it's an L. I don't know what the score's going to be. I just know I'm going to be feeling like shit on Tuesday night around 10 o'clock. So
we'll see. We'll see who's right, man. We'll see. I think it's going to be me and Chuck. But Matt, hey, if it makes you sleep better at night, and opening night L, hopefully it's not the case. But before we get out of here, boys, it's been a long pod. But yeah, anything to shout out? Anything on the horizon?
Man, I mean, we're just chilling right now. We're waiting for the season to start. I'm sure I'm going to be getting back on my article grind as soon as things start rolling again. Matt, that's how you know that you've been podcasting for someone for a while. He can smell the Trace Jackson Davis piece in the air before I even put together the outlines or the clips. He knows it's coming. And
stinks of Chuck.
It reeks, dude. It reeks of my bag. And yeah, no, I'm excited to get the season rolling. As always, you can catch me at Claytheist11, where I'll just be tweeting all the damn time. And go check out theswishtheory.com, where I do all my work, and you might learn a thing or two about some NBA draft prospects along the way.
There you go.
Gold. Yeah, I got nothing. Nothing. Nope. Nothing coming out.
Nothing to shout out, love it.
If you love a good pity party, just catch the timeline on Tuesday and I'll be right there for you. So
Celebrating the win. That's what you better be doing on Tuesday. Yeah, I got nothing else, man. Shout out the pod, or follow the pod, follow us. Shout out the Niners coming off their first L. But Monday Night Football prime time against the Vikings. We'll dive deeper into them next episode. But until then, man. Peace.